The first heaven, Jannah al-Mawa. Jannah al-Mawa is the first and closest of the heavenly levels to the world as human beings understand it. And yet even this lowest level contains within it a beauty and a peace so complete that the entire span of worldly life, with all its pleasures and all its grief, would appear as nothing beside a single moment spent within it. The name itself carries the meaning of a place of refuge and shelter, a dwelling where the soul finally rests after the long and effortful journey of a human life. And that quality of rest, genuine, uninterrupted, unthreatened, is what distinguishes even this first level from the very best that the world was ever able to offer. Its roots in Islamic teaching appear across Hadith literature and Quranic description, building a picture not of a vague spiritual state, but of a real and specific place with real and specific qualities, taken seriously by Islamic scholarship as a literal destination rather than a poetic metaphor for something essentially formless. What separates Jannah al-Mawa from the levels above it is not the absence of beauty, but its position as the beginning of a scale that only increases from here. In the same way that the first level of a mountain already offers a view that would astonish someone who had never left the valley, while those higher up the same mountain can see something the first level cannot. The souls of martyrs are specifically associated with this level in some narrations, dwelling here in a form that continues to experience the closeness of the divine even as their physical bodies remain in the earth. For the ordinary believer learning about this level for the first time, what tends to land most deeply is not the grandeur of what is described, but the mercy embedded in the fact that even the lowest level of paradise exceeds anything the imagination can honestly construct. The second heaven, Dar al-Qarar. Dar al-Qarar carries the meaning of a permanent and settled abode, a dwelling place defined by the total absence of the impermanence that shadows every experience in worldly life. In the world, every good thing eventually ends, the meal is finished, the gathering disperses, the health fades, the relationship changes, the season passes. Even the most beautiful moments arrive already carrying within them the knowledge that they will not last. Dar al-Qarar represents the complete reversal of that condition, a state in which what is good does not diminish, what is peaceful does not disturb, and what is present does not eventually leave. This level is referenced in Islamic scripture and scholarly tradition as part of a broader Quranic characterization of the afterlife as the true and permanent home, in contrast to the world which is described repeatedly as temporary lodging rather than genuine residence. What distinguishes this level from Jannah al-Mawa is the particular quality of settledness it emphasizes, not simply a beautiful place, but a place where the soul finally knows without any reservation or underlying anxiety that what it has will not be taken from it. The emotional weight of this concept is difficult to fully appreciate without sitting with it honestly against the backdrop of ordinary human experience in which even the happiest of circumstances carry a shadow of fragility. People who have lost what they loved most understand this quality most deeply, and for them, the promise of Dar al-Qarar is not abstract comfort, but something that speaks directly to the specific ache of knowing that everything good in this world is on loan. The third heaven, Jannah al-Khuld. Jannah al-Khuld translates as the Garden of Eternity, and its defining characteristic is precisely what the name declares: a duration without end, an existence that continues not for a long time but forever, without any approaching boundary, without any countdown, without the slow awareness that what remains is less than what has already passed. In the world, time is the condition that limits everything else, the frame inside which all experience occurs and beyond which nothing in the world survives. The promise of Jannah al-Khuld dismantles that frame entirely. What is experienced here does not exist within time in the way worldly experience does, which means the most ordinary joy of this level, if ordinary is even a concept that applies, does not carry within it the shadow of its own ending. Islamic teaching on eternity has always been careful to note that human beings genuinely cannot construct an accurate picture of what endless existence feels like, since every concept the human mind reaches for is drawn from a life defined entirely by beginnings and endings. What scholars have emphasized instead is the quality of what that eternity contains, not endless emptiness or repetitive monotony, but a continuously unfolding experience of nearness, beauty, and peace that does not repeat in a diminishing loop, but expands, deepening rather than exhausting itself across a duration the mind cannot honestly measure. For many believers, this level is the one that most directly answers the grief of losing people they loved in this world. Because eternity long enough does not merely compensate for what was lost, it makes the separation itself feel, in retrospect, as brief as a single night. The fourth heaven, Jannat al-Naim. Jannat al-Naim translates as the Garden of Delight and is perhaps the most frequently referenced of the heavenly levels in Quranic language, its name appearing repeatedly across different chapters in descriptions of what awaits the believers. The word Naim in Arabic conveys a softness and pleasantness that goes beyond simple happiness into something closer to a state of complete, undisturbed ease, the kind of comfort that requires no effort to maintain and no anxiety about whether it will continue. Classical scholars describe this level as the destination of the broad body of sincere believers, those who live their lives in genuine faith and consistent practice without necessarily reaching the highest spiritual stations. And its repeated mention in the Quran has made it the level most directly present in the imagination of ordinary Muslims throughout Islamic history. What distinguishes Jannat al-Naim from the levels below it is not a difference in the safety or permanence of what is offered, but in the fullness and completeness of the delight itself, a quality of joy so total that no corner of the person experiencing it is left untouched by it. Islamic descriptions of what this level contains move between the physical and the spiritual without separating them, describing a beauty of environment and form alongside a nearness to the divine that satisfies every dimension of what a human being was created to need and want. For most Muslims, this is the level that prayer is most directly aimed at reaching, the horizon that gives daily worship and the daily struggle against one's own shortcomings their most immediate point of reference. The fifth heaven, Jannat al-Maqama. Jannat al-Maqama describes a station of honor and distinguished standing, a level defined not simply by what it contains, but by the particular rank and recognition it represents for those who inhabit it. The concept of maqam in Islamic spiritual tradition carries significant weight, used throughout classical scholarship to describe the stations or degrees of closeness to the divine that a person's sincere efforts and spiritual development can bring them toward across a lifetime. At this level of paradise, that concept of station is elevated to its most complete and literal expression, a dwelling place that reflects not merely general entry into divine mercy, but a specific and honored position earned through a specific quality of life lived. What separates this level from Jannat al-Naim is its emphasis on distinction and recognition rather than simple delight, the difference between arriving somewhere beautiful and arriving somewhere that was, in some sense, prepared specifically for who you are and what you brought with you. Islamic scholarship has connected various categories of believers to various stations within the heavens. And while the precise mapping differs across scholarly traditions, the consistent principle is that the quality of a person's devotion, sacrifice, and character in this life has a direct and meaningful relationship to what they receive in the next. This principle matters enormously to ordinary believers because it means that every act of genuine sincerity performed in a life lived quietly and without recognition is being measured against a scale more precise and more generous than any human accounting could produce. The sixth heaven, Jannat al-Adn. Jannat al-Adn is one of the most explicitly named levels in Quranic language. Referred to directly in multiple chapters as Gardens of Eden, a phrase whose familiarity across religious traditions gives it a particular resonance even beyond the specifically Islamic context. The name carries the meaning of settled permanence and deep-rootedness, a dwelling so completely suited to the one inhabiting it that the concept of wanting to be anywhere else simply does not arise. Classical Islamic scholarship described this level as among the highest available to the generality of believers, a station of extraordinary closeness to the divine combined with a fullness of reward that exceeds what any human act of worship could arithmetically earn, covered instead by a generosity that multiplies beyond calculation. What distinguishes Jannat al-Adn from the levels below it is the quality of divine pleasure associated with it. The inhabiting of this level is described in terms that go beyond receiving reward into something closer to being genuinely welcomed, a distinction that carries enormous emotional weight for anyone who has ever experienced the difference between being tolerated and being truly received. The Quran describes the inhabitants of this level as having God's pleasure upon them and they upon God, a mutual satisfaction framed in language of warmth rather than transaction. For many scholars, this mutual pleasure is itself the most significant characteristic of this level, since it represents not merely a destination reached, but a relationship fully and finally arrived at. The thing that every prayer, every fast, every act of patience, and every sincere return after falling short was always moving toward. The seventh heaven, Jannat al-Firdaus. Jannat al-Firdaus is the highest and most complete of all the levels. the summit of everything the concept of paradise contains, and the place toward which the Prophet Muhammad specifically directed believers when he instructed them to ask for the highest when making supplication for paradise, because from all Firdaus flow the rivers of all the gardens below, and above it is the throne of the most merciful. This instruction is itself among the most moving pieces of guidance preserved in Hadith literature, because it reveals something about the generosity underlying the entire framework, not a ceiling placed on human aspiration, but an encouragement to reach for the highest without embarrassment or hesitation, since the one being asked is entirely capable of giving it. What separates Al-Firdaus from every level below it is not simply a quantitative increase in beauty or comfort, but a qualitative difference in closeness. This is the level most directly beneath the divine throne. And the scholars who wrote about it described the experience of that proximity as something that renders every other pleasure available anywhere in the heavens secondary by comparison. The greatest reward described in Islamic eschatology, referenced in both Quran and Hadith, and discussed by scholars with a reverence that never seemed to diminish across the centuries, is the direct vision of God the Ruya, and it is associated most completely with the inhabitants of Al-Firdaus, not the rivers, not the palaces, not the beauty of form or environment, not the reunion with those who were loved and lost, not even the eternity itself, but the sight of the divine face, which the Prophet described as so overwhelming in its beauty that the people of paradise will forget every other pleasure they have experienced at the moment it is given to them. For the believer sitting with this knowledge in an ordinary moment of an ordinary day, the effect is not grandiosity, but something quieter and more urgent, a recalibration of what the day actually means and what the prayer about to be performed is genuinely reaching toward.